regular city council meeting for Monday, February 25th, 2019. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Holly, will you call the roll, please?
Welton. Bizzard.
Here.
Bellinger.
Here.
Wise.
Here.
Rhines.
Here.
Gilroy.
Here.
Hall.
Here.
All right, I am looking for approval of this evening's agenda unless there's any changes that need to be made.
So move.
All right,
Second.
all those in favor?
Aye.
All right, now we have an opportunity for audience participation, a maximum of 5 minutes, presentation on non-agenda items. All right, moving right along. We have the council meeting minutes of January 14th and also February 11th. Were there any changes that any council member wanted to make?
Move to approve as submitted. Support.
All right, all in favor?
Aye.
All right. Noah, we have accounts payable this evening.
Yes, I had a chance to do a look at accounts receivable, and I'd like to make a motion to approve checks number 71440 through 71483 in the total amount of $292,052.57.
All right. Any questions regarding accounts payable this evening? Yes.
Just one, the Beck Mobile Concrete for snowplow crew assistance, is that for a truck or?
No, actually, during the wintertime, we have enough equipment that we have additional help come in, and Kevin Beck comes in on an hourly basis and operates a truck with us.
Gotcha. Sounds good.
All right. If there's no other questions, I'm looking for a motion to approve the accounts payable.
So moved. No one made the
I
motion.
made the
Oh,
motion, we
okay.
just need the.
Yes.
All right, the support. Thank you, Sandy. Holly, will you call the roll on that?
Wise.
Yes.
Rhines.
Yes.
Gilroy.
Yes.
Watson. Yes. Hall.
Yes.
Bizzard.
Yes.
Bellinger.
Yes.
Thank you. All right, we've got short action items list for this evening, so we'll get right to it with our first item is the second reading of the fireworks ordinance, and I see we have a duplicate page in here, so it is just page 8A, correct? Or is there other language in page 3AA? Yes, both of you?
Go ahead.
Page 1 and page 2 of 8A are the original version of the proposed ordinance.
Okay.
That was subject of a first reading at the last meeting.
Yep.
There was a request to see about potentially updating it or revising it, and so pages 3 and 4 are a revised version, and at the bottom of page 3, there's an additional clause in there which indicates that the exception to the blanket prohibition is in place except if there is an officially authorized burning restriction in
Okay.
place.
All right,
I think
great.
that was what was asked about, and looking into it, there is the statute that was passed last year and effective December 28th, allows for a local fire chief in consultation with the Department of Natural Resources to enforce a no burning restriction that includes a ban on the ignition, discharge, and use of consumer fireworks within a city. So, in reliance on that, in the event that the local fire chief and/or the Michigan Department of Natural Resources puts a burning ban in place, well then the exceptions to our blanket prohibition would not apply.
Okay, great. Thank you very much, Tim. Questions?
I think that's a great work finding that, and I'm glad we're adding that. My only question is, now that we're changing the ordinance that we had, the first public hearing for last week, would we need to do this again?
Reading, I don't know if
That's not my understanding. First off, there wasn't a public hearing. We don't
It was just a
require a
first
public
reading.
hearing.
But first reading.
It does require 2 readings, and it's my understanding that
Changes
purpose
could
of
be
that
made.
to make changes.
Okay.
And so this could be a second reading under this version.
Okay. All right then, well, I thank you very much as well, because I think that will be good in case we do have drought this summer and the fire chief deems it necessary to put a burn restriction in place, so I appreciate that, and I think the residents will appreciate that as well. All right. With that being said then, is there any other questions regarding the second reading of the fireworks ordinance?
The motion should probably indicate that it's with the updated version.
Okay, all right, so looking for a motion that would include that additional verbiage.
I'll make a motion to, are we approving the ordinance? I'm sorry.
We're approving the second reading.
Approving the second reading of the ordinance with the changes indicated on pages, the bottom of page 3.
Second.
Okay. Holly?
Rhines,
Yes.
Gilroy,
Yes.
Walton. Yes. Hall,
Yes.
Bizzard,
Yes.
Bellinger,
Yes.
Wise.
Yes.
All right, thank you. Now we also have, it looks like we have some emergency procedures that have been included in our packet. What to do in regards to a fire, tornado, intruder security emergency, snow emergency, and power outage. So if you've all had an opportunity to read through what our policy and procedures would be in these certain situations, I'm looking for a motion, or if anybody has questions, discussion.
Just a question, Corey. This is just something that you're outlining, putting in like the employee handbook, so, allow the employees that.
Sure, good question. Actually, the information that's in the packet was previously adopted by council. My understanding was that we had 2 council members request to look at that, based on the snow emergency policy, which states that the city hall will close when the state offices close, so that's what the language says today. And we were simply responding to that request to look at that at the council table.
Okay.
So, but these are typically found like in our company, they're in our employee handbooks or whatever, operational procedures.
Sure, yeah, it's a little strange to me that it was just kind of a loose leaf packet that was adopted in 2014. But as of today, they exist as a standalone document. Yeah. So we would be looking for council direction if there was an urge to change that. There really isn't a staff recommendation at this time. It was simply something that was discussed and wanted to be brought forward, so.
Well, and I think that some of these would be applicable to any time that City Hall or Chamber Councils are in use. So we would want to make sure that everyone was familiar with this, certain, you know, our boards that use this or any other, you know, parties that would have meetings in here. Okay. Questions? Yes.
Under the tornado section,
Yes.
I think that it should read, the warning siren should sound if a tornado warning is issued, and another siren will sound if the warning is over. I have it on good authority that we don't sound the siren when it's over, so I would want to strike that. And then, I would make a recommendation, of course, it's up to Corey, but I would like to see that the city hall will close when county offices close. And just because I'm intricate in when the county does close, the system for when the state closes is directed at state employees primarily that work in Lansing. And I think that with a rural setting out here, I think it'd be much more applicable if Williamston would close if the county closed.
How often is the county closed?
More than the state. Not very often. As of late, often, but I just think it's more applicable for us if the county closes on a rural level.
And to follow up with that, Corey and I had a lot of discussion during those polar vortex days and when the call would be made. And my concern was I did not want staff traveling in unnecessarily, keeping, you know, the safety factor at the top of my concern. So I appreciate that as well, because I think that the county's probably a little bit more in tune with the conditions and everything out there, and there are a lot of state workers downtown, but not necessarily everybody closes up shop when state workers are sent home. So I like both of those recommendations, thank you. Any questions regarding this?
I have a question.
Okay,
More in line of, well, actually, I was thinking about asking Chief or Scott for a recommendation on, we had a situation a couple years ago where there was a group of people that were specifically targeting municipality maintenance barns and things for robbery. They hit Williamston Township, DeWitt, Perry's, municipal barns and whatnot. And the one thing I noticed in this was we don't have any direction for employees if they show up and it's obvious that building's been broken into, what we would want them to do. They're just supposed to call a chief. We ran into some I was the one that found ours. And we ran into some problems with that after, I mean, just the way I ended up on some paperwork and Meridian Township was sending stuff with my name on it to the township, and they're like, well, it should be coming to us, and it was confusing, so I don't know, hopefully it never happens, but if you know what's.
Yeah, I do remember the discussion we had, and the most important thing is that the proper police authority is contacted. I think your position is who from the entity is the one that contacts them? Is it the employee or is it the township supervisor? Because, I mean, we became in the loop because we were helping with the other agencies looking for that and ultimately finding some of the property, but I don't know as though you need a necessary policy of who that is.
Or I didn't know if we just wanted to address a situation where they're like that, and I saw we had security measures and whatnot in there.
Because from the city's perspective, if there's anything criminal, they're
It
gonna
just calls.
they're gonna be contacted.
What about making entry into a
Yeah,
unsecured
that was
building?
more a question for
Yeah.
Claire, are they supposed to stay outside, do they go in, do they?
I would think you would want to add that they would remain outside until property authorities arrived on scene. And I think that's just, it is common sense, but still, I think if you
Most
could
of
have that in here.
What we have here is common sense.
Right, but I would add that if we could, that if upon arriving and it's obvious that there's been criminal act, that they remain, outside of the building until authorities arrive on scene.
Right, because this does happen on a fairly regular basis. It's often DPW finding that the bathrooms, restrooms have been vandalized, which most recently
Right.
Occurred, and they contact us, so
Speaking of that, and since you brought that up, are those bathrooms still unavailable?
they are.
Okay, so just make sure that everybody is aware of that the McCormick Park restrooms are unavailable at this particular time.
Yes.
All right. Anything else that we want to add to any of these policies or procedures? Or questions regarding them?
Corey, I would ask one thing. You might want to keep a record for training. So
Sure.
that each person that they've read through this policy, they sign off that they've read and understand the policies, just in case that ever comes up.
Along the lines of tornadoes, are tornado shelters marked at our buildings?
It's a good question, I have to get back to you.
I would like to see this possibly tabled, bring back the changes, make sure that we have proper identification in all of the municipality buildings. And then also, what is the plan to make our different city boards aware of our emergency procedures? I think it's a great idea that, that Noah brought up, that internally, make sure that everybody reads and understands them, but as far as board members, if you make sure that, you know, they get them in their packet,
Sure.
okay? So, I would need a motion for that.
Or we just take no, motion to take no action?
Is it postponed?
Yeah, postpone.
I make a motion to postpone the emergency procedures and to be brought back at a later date.
Second.
All right, Holly?
Gilroy,
Yes.
Walton. Yes. Hall,
Yes.
Bizzard,
Yes.
Bellinger,
Yes.
Weiss.
Yes.
Rhines.
Yes.
Very good discussion, thank you. Next on our action items, we have the fire insurance withholding program resolution. Corey, thank you for your write-up on this, and a little bit more information, I'm assuming.
Sure, thank you. So, the memo and the resolution go hand in hand. Basically provides some background information on a program that the state of Michigan allows municipalities to participate in. What this means is if there was a fire in town, let's say to a commercial building, this would allow the city to basically escrow up to 25% of the insurance settlement to be sure that the work that needs to be done actually gets done. So for example, if there was an insurance settlement and then a property owner walked, there'd be a nuisance building left at that location. And so the city could then use that 25% escrow funds to make the improvements to the structure. This is a fairly common resolution. There's a list of communities that participate out on the state website, and for whatever reason, we are not on there. So it was something that our building official and Mr. Bartley, who handles a lot of our code enforcement complaints from the attorney's office, they had noted that we should probably pass this resolution to get on that list. We did look and see in Meetingl County, just about every municipality is on the list, and it is quite lengthy. So council's asked to pass a resolution. If it passes, there's some forms that we have to submit, and then we're on the list, and we hope we never have to use it, but it's there in the event that we do.
Good catch.
So this does not only apply to commercial buildings, though, it would apply to all buildings?
Correct, yes.
Do we know what would let's say, talk residential for a minute, at what point, because my worry is, you know, a lot of people, they're gonna need that money to rebuild.
Right.
At what point do we decide, okay, you've shown your good faith effort, and then we release their 25% to them? When does that occur? Do we know?
Don't know that right now.
Yeah.
I think that this program is not used a lot, so it was difficult to track down that answer, but that's certainly something we could ask the state about.
So I guess then, so it's not an automatic thing, so there's a fire, we hold 25%, it doesn't automatically kick in, we have to, there's a mechanism, okay, we think this could be a problem, so we do it at that point?
Right, I think there's forms that we have to submit through the state, that's handled through the Department of Insurance, and has a longer name than that, but we would coordinate with them on that activity.
I could see this becoming a problem, like let's say, Pat Mead's house over on Williamston, or William Street, that finally, land bank
Yep.
tore down. But if it were a vacant residential building, I could see us going after it, but I would think typically
Well,
everybody has
I
homeowners
guess-
insurance and fire
Yes,
coverage.
I would say no on that.
No, yeah.
well, if you have a mortgage, you have to
Yeah,
have
you have
homeowner's
to.
insurance. I guess I need to know more about the mechanism before I'm comfortable voting for it.
Well, here's the
Because-
thing with this,
And I think Jim's
and not to interrupt you, but if we have another bucket fire or something like that, and that person is unable to, with insurance, take that, if they take that money and run, then we're left with a dilapidated
Right.
building downtown. It's a safety hazard. I mean, we were lucky already with the two that were there, that things were taken care of, but if the circumstances were different, let's say they jump ship, now, where's that money coming from? Where's, you know what I'm saying?
Well,
Just to clean
The
up.
vast
site, make it
majority of
safe.
people are not gonna leave a building that they own, they're gonna, if anything, they'll sell the building to somebody else who will rehabilitate it. They're not gonna leave, even if it's at a lower value. They're not gonna, because it's still a commodity to them, it's not, like, I personally know someone who had a rental fire and he wanted to get out of the rental business, so he sold it to a developer and then he was able to keep the insurance money. But in that case, what happens to the money there? Do we keep the money until the developer rebuilds the house, or when he sells it, does he get the money back? I mean, what's and if we're not doing it with every fire, how do we decide what fires we're gonna do?
Right. Tim, I think you wanted to give
Well,
some input.
yes, there is an opportunity for the property owner to object to the retention of the escrow amount. And so that there's that protection, if they can show that they need it for the project. Also, the money is held in escrow so that the property does get rehabilitated. And they get the money if they show that they're working on it, or they've got a contract, or that they've done enough work that they need the last amount to finish it. It's when they don't do anything for 120 days that we give notice that we're gonna have to use this money to bring this property into compliance. But that's what the money is for.
But
It's
you've
not-
already got the money for the 120 days, right? And then if they don't have, so you, I'm assuming out of the initial draw that they get from the insurance, we take 25%. And then if they haven't done anything for 120 days, then this comes further into effect, or?
Then we can take action. I haven't studied this in detail, but yes. The whole idea is for the project to be completed, or the rehabilitation to occur, or that it not be left in a nuisance manner.
I
But that's what the money is to be used for.
I understand that, but at the same point, to me, the vast majority of these people have just had a large fire, they may have lost everything, and then we come and say, well, sorry, we're gonna take 25%, hope you get going. I mean, I know people that they were taking initial insurance draws to try and buy clothes, and if I guess I don't know how this is all gonna work, and I don't.
So let me ask this question, is this something that, I mean, if we were to adapt this resolution, but would this also be in concert with our fire code that we are going to be working on? Or how do we determine, is this every time there's a fire, whether it's residential and commercial, this is applicable? Or does it depend on the severity of the fire? And does it mean it's a total loss that we would use this? I mean, let's say I have a kitchen fire, it's a grease fire, and I have smoke damage and a little bit of water damage, and it's less than 20% of my home that was damaged. Is this applicable or not? How does that, I think we have a lot of questions. And when do you put this into play?
Sure. All I'll say is it has nothing to do with the fire code. It came up separately from that whole discussion. When we did the initial research, and, I'm not gonna give it a percentage, but this is a very common resolution adopted by municipalities. So we thought, let's get on the boat. It's been around since, I think, the 80s. Yeah, and so we've let it go a long time. But certainly there are some really good questions that we can research further if council decides to postpone.
I guess I'd wanna know, when do we invoke it? I mean, a fire is a fire, but like I said, if it's minimal damage and if the commercial building needs minimal amount of work done, or if it's a bigger loss like the bucket, or if it's a 20% structural damage to a home where you can still occupy it while the repairs are being made, or if it's a complete, I guess I need
Sure.
So,
to know more.
reading this, it says Michigan Insurance Code, so is this something that we adopt and then the insurance companies are looking at the local policies and they're withholding the 25% and it's put into, I guess that's how.
I think what happens is that the insurance company, when they get a claim, they go online to see if the city is in this program. And so they know that they can't pay 100% out to the insured at that point.
It says we set up a bank account
Yes.
with one of the local banks and Corey administers it.
Right, well, I'm just reading the top part here and trying to figure, like, who initiates it? Is it through, like, once they make an insurance claim, boom, like he's saying they see the code, okay, now they contact you.
I believe, as Tim said, it's initiated by the insurance companies themselves. In order to get that call, you have to be on the list as a municipality. So by nature, an escrow account is designed for the person that's put the money in escrow to have access to. So as they got to that threshold where they needed that, they would simply turn that in and the money would be released.
So case in point, tavern, if we would have been on that list and they would have determined that those damages were too extensive, they didn't want to put the time and effort into it, we would have had 25% of whatever the insurance company deemed they were going to pay out, loss. We would have that 25% to try to make that first floor, rehabilitate it so that somebody else could come in. I mean, I do see where this is a good thing for our downtown district. I don't know so much about residential, and I get what you're
see-
saying.
I see your point, but I don't think there's any way, even if they decided we wanna be out of the restaurant business, there's no way that they wouldn't try to sell that building. It's
But
too-
could they sell it based
I-
on, you know,
Somebody take it, Grand River.
you know, with whoever their mortgagee is, or whoever holds the note on it, or,
Not to argue it any further, but that building was dilapidated before they built Tavern in there, so it took a lot of work to get it to where it's at. So to say that, you know, it was unsafe too.
I think this is a good protection for the city, and I see the issue with, are we gonna invoke this and everything, but I think it's, I applaud Corey for finding this program that we weren't a part of. And I hate to see something happen and us not take action on this. There's some good questions, but I think they're procedural questions, but I'd like to move forward with the motion.
And then, just a quick question, this would be for all future, not anything in the past, so.
That's
Right.
correct.
Correct. There are some other considerations. It allows for the insurer to enter into a contract, the insurer to enter into a repair contract, and if they do that within 15 days, we don't withhold the money. They can also consent to have the city pay the contractor directly. So there are other ways that this can be done. I don't think it's a matter of the city preventing the homeowner from affecting the repairs at all.
okay,
It's just that they don't, and we need to either secure the property or demolish it, something like that, we'll have the funds to do so.
okay.
So just a
Thank you, Tim.
Just a question, Jeff, you made a formal motion.
You did.
I will, I have not yet, but I'll make a motion to approve the resolution authorizing the city of Williamston's participation in the fire insurance withholding program and to establish an escrow account. Second.
All right. Holly, will you call the roll, please?
Walton,
Yes.
Hall,
Yes.
Bizzard,
Yes.
Bellinger,
Yes.
Wise,
Yes.
Rhines,
No.
Gilroy.
Yes. All right, thank you. I think that was all very good discussion. I think, you know, Tim, you were able to maybe shed light on a few more things for us. Definitely would like to see the full, resolution of it and how it affects residential. I think residential is my bigger concern, and I do agree with Dan on that. All right, next up we have, Weekend Survival Kits request for fee waiver for use of the band shell. It looks like they're looking to use it on Saturday, July 13th for a fundraiser from 10 a.m. to midnight. And then also, they're gonna be asking in the next, action for permitted sales of alcohol beverages in McCormick Park, so. Any questions or comments or concerns regarding the first motion for the fee waiver of the band shell?
This is the same as they did last year, correct?
I think so, yeah.
It's just Weekend Survival Kits on the paperwork instead of ovation. I think
Right.
it's the same thing.
Yeah.
All right.
Mayor, I just said, I'm sorry, go ahead. It's a-
No, I was,
Just a quick question, on the fee schedule says 11 a.m. to sunset, and there's no midnight. I guess I just defer to the chief on his thoughts of authorizing it till midnight with alcohol sales.
Yeah, no, they do that for the cleanup, but they shut down the
Okay,
sales
gotcha.
before that.
Okay.
And that's the same as we did it last year, but no, thanks for looking at that.
No, it was great last year, and I think it was real
Yeah.
positive, but I
Yep.
just compared.
Any other questions for this waiver?
No, I would like to make a motion to, for the fee waiver for the use of the band shell for the Weekend Survival Kits request.
All right, thank you, Sandy. Holly?
Hall,
Yes.
Bizzard,
Yes.
Bellinger,
Yes.
Wise,
Yes.
Rhines,
yes.
Gilroy,
Yes.
Walton.
All right, so then the second part of this is the Weekend Survival Kits request for permitted sales of alcoholic beverages in McCormick Park. Just as Councilman Bizzard said, this is the Williamston International Festival of Loggers fundraiser, and it's, the application was brought by Weekend Survival Kits. So this will be the second year of this event. Chief, any concerns moving forward with this?
No, this is just to allow the alcohol to be served in the park. They still have to get all the appropriate LCC licensing, which is a separate thing, and then have to get through all of our department heads' approvals after we
Okay.
make those two approvals.
Great, all right, thank you.
I'd like to make a motion to approve the request for the weekend survival kit request for the sale of alcohol beverages in McCormick Park.
Okay,
Second.
all right, thank you. Roll call, Holly?
Bizzard,
Yes.
Bellinger,
Yes.
Wise,
Yes.
Rhines,
Yes.
Gilroy,
Yes.
Walton, Hall,
Yes.
Great. That concludes our action items. We have discussion items of the complete streets policy exception request. Scott and Corey, we had conversation with Corey. Hopefully you guys were all able to read the memo that Corey did put in here. So I will open up to Corey.
All right, thank you. If I could draw your attention to page 9A, page 3. It's an aerial image of Middle, Mullet Street area. So as the memo describes, there's an area that's outlined in red that is part of our Middle Street project. We started it in 2017. We had to wait 2 years for the second part of the grant. But essentially, we'll be doing a road reconstruction project on the last part of East Middle, down through the bend in the road on Mill Street where it turns to gravel, and then also South Mullet Street. If anybody's driven on that, it's probably one of the worst paved roads in town. So it's a really good project. As we went through the process of designing and doing the public outreach, there is a component of this project that has proved a little bit problematic for one of our residents, Mr. and Mrs. Honor in the audience tonight. They live right at the end of Middle Street on Mill. They have a Mill address, and there's the provision of sidewalks on that northern side of Middle, kind of around the bend, and it's slated to stop right about where their house at Mill Street ends.
You're referring to the red section here on the.
Yep, the red section, and the flip side of that is a design drawing of how that looks as well. And so as we went through the process, we were approached by Mr. Hahn, who expressed a lot of concern about that project. In addition to the fact that there's no sidewalks there today, there's a pretty extensive tree that would be in the way of that sidewalk, that would be slated for removal. So Mr. Trees and I met with Mr. and Mrs. Hahn to take a deeper look at the plans and the process, and basically we left with, I think a bit of an impasse. So we have a complete streets policy that staff feels requires us to include sidewalks on projects, particularly in areas that we didn't have them in the past. And so as we've looked at potential options, we explored possibly moving the sidewalk back a little bit and changing the location of the crosswalk. But for various reasons, including the fact that the crosswalk would end in a driveway approach, which is not permitted, that did not become an option. The second thing we looked at was actually just terminating the project at Mullet Street, because that last portion that goes from Mullet down around the bend is on the local street system, whereas the rest of the project's on the major street system. And so staff just doesn't feel like that's the right choice here, because we've got the contractor mobilized. Wouldn't recommend that we just stop short when we've got that, I don't know the exact footage, but it's not much more to make it around that bend. So obviously that, that doesn't satisfy the residents, question here, which from their perspective, as we met with them, they've kind of noted that right now, if you build that sidewalk around the corner, it's a sidewalk to nowhere. It just kind of terminates at the end of their property. Staff would say that, eventually we would hope to pave and put sidewalks down the other side of Mill Street, but there's not anything in the immediate works on that front. So with that said, the Complete Streets policy does have a provision that would involve council. So if council feels that the probable or intended use of a sidewalk facility exceeds the cost, then you can waive that requirement for a section of a road. So really, we're here tonight to discuss that request. The Hans are here and Mr. DeVries is here if there are any specific questions. But we'd like to, try to get them an answer both so we can satisfy that and then also keep the project moving forward.
Great, all right, so.
I don't
go ahead.
understand the reason why you're going around onto Mill. I don't understand that.
So I think the rationale there is the road will actually get paved right around that bend to approximately where it ends today. I think there's gonna be a little bit more pavement. And so what we're saying is that because we're reconstructing the road, the sidewalks are part of that process.
Right,
So will there be 2 sidewalks in front on Mill Street?
no, so you'd have your sidewalk here, and
Oh, the way
then,
I'm looking at it here.
yes, you already have an existing sidewalk that will go along your side on the, west side. The new sidewalk would be
is-
this
I
red.
understand that, I don't
But I
understand
don't
what
think
this is.
that is the sidewalk, that's where it would end.
Yeah, I know, I see
So-
that, but why, I don't understand why it's gotta work that way.
Right,
Because it's part
Why
of the
you got
complete street.
why you got that thing hanging out there.
right. So,
And I think it'd be a problem.
I did have extensive conversation with Corey on 2 separate occasions. I am in favor, I'm just gonna be very honest, blanket honest, I'm in favor of, working with the residents, because I believe that we can make this work with the crosswalk off of, Mullet coming across over to Middle, right here in the center. I do appreciate the fact that they came forward and expressed their interest in saving that tree, and the fact that we don't have any immediate plans in the future to finish that Mill Street or that east side of Mill Street. And so
So
I'm in
here's,
favor of, working with residents.
could this section of sidewalk that's being proposed be pushed to, if Mill Street is done then, that section of sidewalk may be put in? Because you're talking 20, 30 years maybe before, I mean, we don't even have a plan, when that's gonna.
Go along with this, Mills,
Right,
nowhere on it.
and
See what I'm saying?
I
I don't know if that satisfies the complete streets then as part of that. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah, I mean, I think that would be the intent, right? If we were to go down the rest, and I don't wanna put words in the Hans' mouth, but I think Mr. Hunt did say, if we were going all the way. if we're-
Perfectly
Yeah.
fine with doing the whole street.
Right, if we were, that
Right.
was his.
But I mean, and I get that, I mean, just looking at, program's there, but it's, right now it doesn't seem
doesn't go
feasible. And we
anywhere.
can put that money, if that's capable, to some other use that's in dire need versus
And-
sidewalk to nowhere.
and I think Jeff had something too.
I guess, for Scott, what are the options on?
What are the options? Well, I
Stop.
guess the question is, I think you're discussing stopping and not putting the sidewalk from Mullet Street on the north side and curving around. Is that what you're discussing? Okay. So to look at that as a concept, the decisions that I would need to have then is, are you replacing the driveways? When we replace driveways, we will put the sidewalk through that drive apron as well. All of the sidewalks on the project, all of the driveways on the project are getting concrete drive aprons,
Right.
like the previous project.
Right.
And that treatment was followed with the 3 driveways that are on that section there too.
So you're looking at a standard 8-foot section of sidewalk technically, or roughly for the 8.
It's 5 foot wide, and it would be,
Well, I mean,
through that
the
driveway.
width of the driveway, say it's 8 feet, the sidewalk section's only gonna be 8 feet, correct?
8 feet.
It's frankly
Yeah.
whatever the drive is.
It'll be whatever the drive is. to
You're
measure.
talking
Right.
about between the sidewalk and the road, correct?
Well, if the
The driveway
sidewalk was to
approach.
go in, it would be the
We
sidewalk.
have no desire for them. We own 3 out of 4 pieces of property involved.
What are the current driveway materials right now?
I've got
Gravel?
crushed asphalt in mine,
Mm-hmm,
gravel in my mother-in-law's, which is ours.
yeah,
And I have not yet put a driveway entrance in for 201 Mill Street.
Okay.
But that is exactly where that driveway approach would
Right.
come out.
The sidewalk he's talking about would be attached to the apron that they would concrete in, so it's just the the top part of that apron, and then,
I guess what we're saying, we don't care about the concrete
Right.
approach
Right.
either, if we
Right.
wanted to not do that.
Because there'd be a dead zone between the non-existing sidewalk.
Right.
If you didn't put it in, there'd just be a new apron for nothing. And we certainly don't need that.
So I think back to Councilman Weiss's question, back to Scott, options. If we don't do the aprons and everything, we just leave those driveways
Yeah.
as they stand.
I agree with Tanya, I think we gotta work with the resident, but I guess, I think ask you guys your question. What's your concern about the project?
If you drive down the street and look at the whole corner, I've got a big hill with a pond and a stream on it, with a huge tree at the base of it. The project would cut into the hill, remove the tree, it would just change the whole corner. And the
And
sidewalk literally would be the sidewalk to absolutely nowhere.
I drove by it tonight before coming out. He's built up a retaining wall that comes down. You'd have to take the retaining wall out to
Two
put the
retaining
sidewalk
walls.
through there. Would take out the tree. There's been a lot of work, and I don't feel like in doing this, in this situation, we're setting a precedence because there's no sidewalk on the other side, and there's no project coming up in the foreseeable future that would put a sidewalk. It's not like it's the middle of a street somewhere where he's got sidewalk over here, he's got sidewalk over here. I don't feel like we're boxing ourselves in if
Right.
we do this.
So I think one question that I heard is, if we do not allocate money for that in this project, can we take that money and can we use it somewhere else in this project? Or
It just wouldn't be in the project.
it just would not be in the project, so that money's not gonna, we're not gonna be able to put that somewhere else?
The other question that I would need to have answered then too is, currently, there is a crosswalk type activity going on there. From their front door,
Right.
they've taken their sidewalk out to the edge of the road with a receiving ramp on the other side.
Right.
So they're gaining access to the sidewalk system just for that house by putting that crosswalk type thing in there.
And by looking at this, and if we take out that north curve around, it would eliminate that sidewalk crosswalk, correct? So when we do this and wrap around, we would not have a crosswalk on the south side or the north side, correct, Scott? If we eliminate this whole sidewalk right here, then we're gonna remove that crosswalk and remove that crosswalk here, but then the sidewalk continues this way.
The
correct?
sidewalks would continue that way.
So, in essence, we would have the crosswalk here at Mullet, it would cross over here, so anybody walking across could cross here, walk down, walk this way.
Right.
So we're not keeping anybody from having a walkable path, it's not gonna be here, they can walk across and then go down.
Well, I guess what I'm pointing out is existing currently, Mr. Hahn has a sidewalk that comes from his front door out to the edge of the road.
Okay,
And on the other side of the road is that
That little
ramp
cross.
that you're talking
Right.
about. In the design process here, we've got the sidewalk basically perpendicular to the road, which is normal and customary. The current crossing is not, it goes on a bit of a skew. It's not, I mean,
so basically, when you get down there and you redo this, it would be taking out that little piece that goes between his sidewalk and the curb.
I would need that directive.
Okay, all right. Would you be okay if that little crosswalk piece came out and
No.
put some grass seed down and everything?
No.
Okay. And it really wouldn't, I mean, because, yeah.
Because it wouldn't
it's-
line up anymore, I don't think, the way
Right.
they're designing it, they're moving it right out, lines right out.
Right.
So.
Other questions regarding this?
I saw in Corey's write-up a question with MDOT regarding some of this. Is that do we have a major concern with that if we?
Prior to this going to press, we weren't able to contact MDOT. I did contact MDOT, well, not really. We talked with the design engineers who have been working with MDOT on this stuff, and they did not see that we would have a major problem. We just wanted to double check that.
Okay, all right. I thought I heard like a possible down here, anything?
No, I think it's been
Okay, all right. I'm looking for a motion then to,
We have to change this to an action item, right now it's just a discussion
Oh.
item.
that's true. If we would like to make it an action item, I would need a motion to make that an action item. Move it from discussion to action.
I will make that motion. Second.
All right, so, the Complete Streets Policy Exception Request now becomes item F on the action list.
Do we need to vote on that or no?
Do we need to vote, roll call?
Bellinger,
Yes.
Wise,
Yes.
Rhines,
Yes.
Gilroy,
Yes.
Walton. Yes. Hall,
Yes.
Bizzard,
Yes.
All right, so, item F on our action list is, the Complete Street Policy Exception Request by the 205 Mill Street residents.
I'll make the motion, but I guess with some direction perhaps from Corey or Scott, how we craft this, or maybe, council.
I guess I need to know from you, are you intending there to still be a concrete driveway installed at the 3 driveway locations?
And I think we heard from the residents that,
Well, you've heard from the resident of
Right.
2 of the properties
Okay.
that come
We
out to that.
own all 3.
No, well, what's her name?
I believe there's a,
Hulberger's.
Culver.
Yeah, we don't know about Hulberger.
right, so that property is not represented at this discussion.
okay. So tell me then, Scott, on this map, are these 3 aprons right here, the residents that are here, do these 3 belong to Han?
Just the 2.
So this
Furthest
one
to
and
the
this one?
east, yes.
Okay,
Can I ask the Hans a question?
yes.
What would be your reason for not wanting the apron itself, just the approach to the driveway paved or concreted?
If you guys want to pour the approach in.
I'm just looking at, if you have gravel driveway or something like that, and you plan on keeping that, that just prevents that material from coming out onto the road.
We don't have a problem with the approach,
Okay.
we just thought it was unnecessary expenditure to just do the street, do the other side of the sidewalk, just leave the other side alone how it's been. And if you ever do the other side of, our side of the street with sidewalk,
Right.
do what you gotta do.
I'm just looking at it from a maintenance standpoint, with snow plows and things like that, gravel being coming out the road,
Actually,
or
it would
washing the
make my
road.
driveway entrance much nicer if it
Was.
did have concrete approach.
Okay. So
I just
we
thought you
could
were
do
against
all
that.
of the aprons, but not the sidewalk portion behind the apron, correct, Scott?
Well, typically, when we put the concrete in, we will strike that as sidewalk for that 5-foot wide part,
Okay, so they'd have like,
and it would stop then. So that
Right.
if you put the
It just adds to the apron,
pieces in
and it would be slated for sidewalk in the future if there ever was. It's just an extension to the apron.
Right, there's a
so they'd
driveway-
have the
driveway
apron and then
there.
they'd have a little bit of sidewalk.
Just like that.
So would you guys be okay with that?
That's fine.
Okay, so we could still have all of the aprons done as a part of the project with no sidewalk.
And then if they ever
Extended.
did with Mill Street,
It'd be there already.
Right.
that's when
That
everything
work's
would
already
change.
done.
And
Right.
Now that Mr. Hahn has brought up, and I think Dan, you talked about it too, that there's some,
Oh, yeah.
you got wooden
Timbers.
timbers there.
Yeah.
So to do this, those wooden timbers would have to come down to put the concrete in at that one driveway.
Needs to be redone.
So that would be something that would have to be worked out.
Well, I actually plan on redoing the driveway in question this spring, so anything they come through and destroy,
You could wait till
I'll
after it's
redo it
done.
when it's done.
Yeah.
So they would do the concrete work and then you would put.
I'll button it up when it's all done, cause this
Okay.
driveway has to come on and be redone this spring anyway, so.
Okay. So I think we're getting closer to crafting this resolution.
So I think, I'll make a motion to grant exception to the, Complete Streets,
Exception request.
grant a request for the Complete Streets policy, with the changes outlined by the homeowner, that the concrete approach, and how would we do this verbiage, Scott? The concrete,
I guess I would call it the integral sidewalk.
the integral sidewalk, would still be part of the project.
If that's your desire.
Do we have to list that we're eliminating the crosswalk or anything? that comes off of the sidewalk at the front of his house.
Tim?
Yes, Tim?
I think what you're, the exception to the policy, you're supposed to identify what it is that you're not going to require. And I think what
Okay.
you're not going to require is certain pedestrian facilities being the major portion of the sidewalk on that side of the
There you
street.
go.
So. Holly's that suffice. Thank you. The motion is,
Second.
All right, any further discussion then?
Everybody understands.
And I think
I got
Tim
my three.
said it
You
very
are
clearly.
going to do everything else except for the
For
sidewalk.
the sidewalk, okay, all right, Holly, will you call the roll, please?
Gilroy,
Yes.
Walton,
Yes.
Hall,
Yes.
Bizzard,
Yes.
Bellinger,
Yes.
Weiss,
yes.
Rhines,
Yes.
Thank you, Mr. and Mrs.
Thank
Hahn,
you
for being
for
here this
looking at it.
evening.
With some comments on it.
Absolutely, absolutely. All right, that was our one and only discussion item that we moved up to an action item. We did receive correspondence regarding the NISA minutes and the yellow book notification. Those are for you to read at your own leisure if you've not read them yet. We have department head reports. Thank you, Corey. Is there anything you'd like to add to your report? Or any questions for Corey off of his report? No? All right. So with that being said, I will move right along to Chief.
Nothing to report.
All right. And we did receive a printout from AGS, Associated Government Services, regarding permits that are being pulled. So that's always nice to see that there's things being done in town. I don't believe we've had any, we had DDA meeting the other night. And that went along very nicely. We had a work session on our goals for DDA. I was not able to be a part of that. Corey was here for that, and we're also working on trying to button up our parking lot project behind Red Cedar Grill with the parking lot that backs up to the pharmacy, the bistro, the hardware store. So that's moving forward, but no real concerns or issues on that. Any other boards meet? Anybody wants to give a update on it? All right. We did have some weather cancellations. We now have audience participation again, if anybody's in the audience. All right. Council member comments, Mr. Hall.
Nothing tonight.
All right, Mr. Bellinger.
I'm good for this evening.
Ms. Walton.
I had the opportunity to be asked to speak to a group of people about the formation of NISA and about the our fire hall, how it was came about. And it was a great discussion, and I enjoyed doing it because, as everybody knows, NISA is my life.
All right, thank you, ma'am. Mr. Bizzard.
I have nothing.
Mr. Rhines.
No comments.
Mr.
Just
Weiss.
my comment before, thank you, Corey, for looking, always checking for things that, the city should have in place that, you found.
Great.
Thank you.
All right. Okay, with that, I'll entertain a motion to close and go into closed session.
I make a motion that we adjourn our open session and move to closed session to discuss,
We don't want to adjourn.
No, we don't want to adjourn, just go into closed
to
session.
go into closed session, we need to say what.
Yep.
Make a motion to go into closed session, under section 8E of the Open Meetings Act, to consult with our attorney regarding settlement strategy in connection with Colonial Williamston LTD, Red Cedar versus City of Williamston.
All right.
Second.
Oh,
Bizzard,
Yes.
Bellinger,
Yeah.
Weiss,
Yes.
Rhines,
Yes.
Gilroy,
yes.
Hall,
Yes.
Welton,
Move the city council approved a recommendation made by legal counsel while in closed session in compliance with section 8E of the Open Meetings Act, and authorize legal counsel to sign any necessary documents.
All right, do I have support?
Support.
Holly?
Bellinger,
Yes.
Weiss,
Yes.
Rhines,
Yes.
Gilroy,
Yes.
Welton,
Yes.
Bizzard,
Yes.
Hall,
Just want to state again that I do live in the districts. But yes.
All right. All right, thank you very much. And now I'm looking for a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
All right, so moved.